I'm Jared. This is Leslie.
Hi.
She's
Nice to meet you.
newest person on board with the Meeple Mentor channel. And so we're excited to have the opportunity to chat with you about some of your games.
Yep.
And I've got some other interview questions ready that not only for like the lore, because I know that's one of the things that I wanted to discuss, but some other general like game design questions if you're cool with that too.
Yep, sounds good.
All right. So how did you get into board game development, and have you been playing board games all your life?
I grew up playing lots of card games and classic games with my family, and then it wasn't until my early 20s that I started thinking about designing. Because I grew up playing music, writing songs, performing songs, and then when I got more into board games again, it was a natural outlet to be creative with what I enjoy. So I was probably about 22, I think, when I started designing games, and then quickly discovered this new kind of community of modern board gamers.
What do you think are the top five most influential board games of the past decade, let's say?
Wow, past decade. Gosh, it's like light questions, eh?
Yeah,
Um,
start out.
influential. Let's go look at my shelf now.
Yeah,
Um,
So if you can think of anything that is, what games have influenced you to be a designer? Maybe that's a
that's a
pretty
better,
good,
yeah,
a good
if that helps.
question.
so I started out playing lots of gateway games like Carcassonne and Ticket to Ride and that kind of stuff. So I still really enjoy that kind of game for its simplicity. But then I play more. Well, I tend to play slightly more medium weight games now. So if I could have a choice to play a game, it might be something like Great Western Trail or Scythe or Role Player or something like that. I just enjoy games that have unique mechanisms, really, and create new experiences at the table.
What kind of games are you currently playing other than Great Western and Scythe? Are those your go-tos?
I have a Thursday night gaming group, so and two of the other people in that group are big collectors, so it's always a fight for what we play each week. But oh, we played recently. We went back and played Valeria Card Kingdoms with all the expansions thrown in. We've played we played GKR Heavy Hitters last week. So kind of we mainly play a lot of new stuff, but we try and go back to older ones when we can. Um, Played what have we played? So many. Hadara, Azul, Gentes, Troyes, Twa, how we pronounce it.
Yeah.
Yeah, lots of ones.
What do you feel that your favorite game mechanics are?
Oh, I think one of my favorites is probably multi-use cards because they create interesting decisions around how to use your hand. Um, and then I guess I lean more towards Euro mechanisms like worker placement, drafting, that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
Awesome. Yeah, I think about like Feudum as a good like multiple card use type of game mechanic.
Yeah.
That's pretty heavy. Okay, so when you're designing a game, like where do you begin, and like what really inspires you when you're designing a new game?
So usually try and think of something kind of new to do with something like a new way of using a card or a die or something like that. Or just try and think of something that hasn't been done yet, maybe.
Hmm.
Other ways we do it. So our current game that we're working on, one of them is that well, personally, I don't really enjoy deck building games. So I thought, how can I make a game that I would enjoy? So like Great Western Trail is an example of a deck builder I do like because it's not just a deck builder.
Yeah.
So we've been working on a game now that's using deck building for other reasons. But yeah, usually it's sort of you get a small nugget, a small concept or idea, and then just build on it, develop it, and watch it take form.
Do you feel like most of the time you start with that game mechanic and then add theme, or do you start with your theme and then add gameplay to it?
So with all that the kind of North Sea West Kingdom stuff, I usually start with the setting first, so I know the general setting and maybe a bit of the story that I want to tell, and then work on the mechanisms, and then once they start clicking, then I go back to theme and think, all right, what is the actual theme of this game? I always try and separate like setting and theme because they are two very different things.
Mhm.
Um, I think of theme more as like immersion and stuff. Yeah, so it's usually setting mechanisms and then quickly followed by theme after that.
So I noticed with the North Sea games and the West Kingdom games that a lot of the components are reused. Is there a reason for that?
Just to give a real consistent kind of feel for the games, so that when you kind of you see it on the table, you know, oh yeah, that's I recognize that piece, I recognize how that like oh that's stone, I can see it across various games.
Gotcha.
It's just creating that brand really.
Since without, as far as the story goes for all these games, there's not much printed like in the rules or like on the characters or anything about its setting, but clearly they are designed to sort of be in the same universe. So what kinds of other storytelling devices do you feel that you use to keep your games feeling unified?
Yeah, so one thing I was very deliberate with originally was not to use any names of places or people. We started adding in heroes and raiders, but they were just very generic kind of Norse names. But we didn't want to reference like actual Vikings or various places because I want it to be just like a clean slate for anyone to create their own adventure on top of. And then we did the North Sea Epilogues RPG about this time last year. So that was our first kind of chance to kind of build more of a world. But we did that more with we hired other writers to jump on and make campaigns. So we gave them a very like kind of broad what the world is and what it isn't, and they were able to create stories in that. So like it isn't magic. That's one I guess one big one. So we don't do frost giants and dragons and stuff.
Right.
But we did have it so that the characters in that world believe in that stuff, but from the outside looking in, it's still just mythology or whatever. Um, and we try to stay away from too much heavy violence in the games. So you'll find a little bit of blood now and then in some characters, but it's very light. So it's
I know
more about the
the
tone.
Jarls that come into the Raiders expansions adds those bloody wound tokens and
Oh
certain
yeah,
there's combat there.
yeah.
Do you have a background in RPG? I mean, what kind of background do you have there?
No, I don't have any background in RPGs at all. So I got into them after playing board games.
Nice.
Yeah, so I've just
Uh,
done a few, like maybe 10 sessions of D&D. That's about it.
nice.
Yeah.
No, I haven't gotten the North Sea Saga or anything, but I assume that there's character names in there.
Yeah, there are also 4 like pre-generated characters that were created using heroes from Raiders as well. So
Okay, so
yeah,
you're still using names that were in the game and not from like mythology.
yeah, yeah, and we created like a kind of intro campaign, so we made all these characters within that campaign as well.
So what would you call your fictional universe, like the North Sea Saga or the West Kingdom, saga or something?
Yeah, I do have some ideas floating around for like the entire thing, but currently it's just like the North Sea trilogy, then the West Kingdom trilogy, and we'll move on to the other 2 trilogies after that. I
Sure.
probably will have some big name for it at some point, but not yet.
Yeah, I mean, you've got like Star Wars, right? You've got different trilogies, and you can call them the prequels and like the originals
Don't
and
do that. Don't do that. So confusing.
yeah, you can find your Star Wars brand, as
Yeah,
it were.
that's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Looking at architects of the West Kingdom, what was your main inspiration for designing that one?
So that one was actually first brought to me by Sam McDonald. So I was originally at that point thinking, what is my next trilogy? Because I wanted to do a new trilogy. And I was even looking at doing like a completely different time period at some point. So I considered doing like a South Pacific with the Maori people, like a Wild West, and then maybe like an East Dynasty or something.
Mhm.
And I was playing around with ideas for a game, wasn't quite working. And then Sam, who hadn't designed games before, but was a friend of mine, plays drums, he said, "Hey, I've got this idea for a game. Would you mind checking it out, see if it's any good?" And we played it on a whiteboard. He just scribbled it down on a whiteboard. He's using Cosmic Encounter tokens for the workers, but it was this mechanism of investing workers into a spot and then being able to capture people's workers, chuck them in prison for money. Real rough. There was like barely any building cards or there's no marble or clay or any of these resources. But I really liked the mechanism that he had. So it took us about a month or so to like throw around ideas for the theme and the setting. I tried to twist it into like this other kind of theme of like kind of training squires and it wasn't working. and we just went back to his here because he had a generic kind of citadels type, building in a medieval fantasy world, and we were just like, it's boring and it's been done, but it fits the mechanism, so why change it?
Paladins of the West Kingdom just came out. What do you think has been the biggest challenge when developing Paladins?
Well, the big one for that was that we knew we wanted to make it a meteor game. And it was actually the first game that Sam and I co-designed from the very start together. So there was probably about 3 months of just spitballing ideas. Just, what about this? What about this? Try this. And then eventually, I think Sam landed on the kind of how the board would look, and how you'd be placing actions on your own board. But even early on, I had this visual idea of this long board with cards kind of pouring in from each side. And we always wanted to do a deck of 12 paladin cards because in the kind of stories there were 12 paladins. So the idea of having like a deck like almost like Citadels or something like that, Mission Red Planet, a deck of cards, that kind of was my inspiration for the game a bit. So we went round and round in circles and eventually came all the way back to the start and ended up being what we kind of visually saw at the start. But it took us 3 or 4 months to actually design the game from that point. I think Sam was working on an idea as a bag building game. And he had this kind of mechanism working. And then he was like, I think there's a game called Orleans which might be similar. So we went out and bought it. We're like, yeah, that's way too similar. So we ripped out the bag building aspect and just changed it completely. Because it was, there's already I think there were squires and all sorts. It was exactly the same. It was a French city.
Yeah.
So we just thought, nope, let's just get rid of the bag. And it was a good idea in the end.
Yeah. No, it's a very tightly balanced game, it feels like. Every time I've played it, it always like, there's so many opportunities to go a different route on how you design or develop your engine that you're building. So it feels like it's been heavily play tested. So
Yeah, it has. So we actually developed like a triangle within the game. I don't know if you've seen it on Kickstarter. We've got the 3 different attributes, so the strength, the faith, and the influence. And then, so if you've got faith, you can use, I don't think what it is now. You can use your money to get strength, or you can use your provisions to get influence. So like, there's this weird triangle that happens with the 2 resources. So there's always 2 ways to get the ability you want, and those 2 ways require 2 different resource types. So it was quite once that started working, it was a real tight puzzle. And it's quite hard to put more things into it. So we were like the townsfolk that we have are like we're fighting to find new ideas for townsfolk because there's only so much you can plug in to this real tight little puzzle. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. I did a lot of solo testing on that game as well. So
Yeah.
you just play like 3 or 4 games back to back in one day. So,
I haven't played the solo variant yet, so I'd like to try that.
yeah, we just found that testing solo is a great way to balance games. It's very fast as well. So once you build the AI to work, you can just kind of. For a lot of our games, I just have 2 AIs fighting against each other. So I won't even be playing. I just do this guy versus this guy, and then you just play, and then see what the results are. And it's a good way of balancing the.
You could just bring it to a game shop and ask 2 people to play and watch them. I'm sure they'd appreciate it.
Yeah, we don't have that much opportunity for that in New Zealand, sadly. So.
Oh, that's a
We do a
bummer.
lot of our testing, on our own.
So you have a fledgling game market there?
It's quite small. It's a very good community, but our biggest convention is about 600 people. That's only once a year.
Nice.
Yeah, but that's our biggest one. We have a few game cafes opening up now and a few shops, but still fairly small industry over here.
How did you decide on the art style that's used in the North Sea and the West Kingdom games? And how did you find the artists? I know a lot of artists out there would love to hear about that.
Yeah. So in my mind originally, I was thinking like the Asterix comics, but just a bit grittier, a bit more grown up. That was what I had in mind for it. So kind of comical, whimsical, but still a bit gritty. I was just searching DeviantArt, the website. I think I probably searched in Viking and just scrolled for ages. I think I found about 3 or 4 that I really liked. And finally, I actually contacted one guy in Canada first, and he was almost about to do it, but then he pulled out last minute because he's moving. Yeah, so then I ended up going to Micho and I think I contacted him DeviantArt and he didn't reply. But I loved his stuff, so then I found him on Facebook, got him on there, and then within I think it was in about 4 hours of me emailing him, he'd sent through 3 characters straight away, and
Wow.
I was blown away by them. So yeah,
And so he's been the main artist for all these games then.
he's done everything for the North Sea and West Kingdom.
So I guess we're on the second trilogy. Is that right? Being
Yes.
North Sea and then West Kingdom. So the third trilogy, he's going to be doing some other art for us.
Yeah.
Excellent. Looking forward to that. Maybe there going to be an East Kingdom or a South Kingdom
It's
or
not going to give it away.
yeah. I'm just-
Yeah,
yeah.
we'll go to the south next, and then the
South
east.
next.
Oh, nice.
Awesome. You heard it here. Awesome. So I had some other kind of questions about the relationship between the West Kingdom and the North Sea. For instance, how large is the North Sea? And could you say take a ship and go to all the different, areas that are referenced and that are part of like the West Kingdom and South Kingdom in this one North Sea?
Yeah, so they it is based loosely in history. So the Vikings did go all the way right down to even the Indian Ocean kind of stuff. They went all the way down through France and into um, sort of Egypt and all sorts. So the North Sea is more like the Scandinavian area down into sort of Denmark, and then of course they raided across the North Sea into England and stuff. Um, yeah, and the West Kingdom is obviously the west part of what is now France, basically, but old Francia. Francia split into the west, north, and I think it was the south. South was called the maybe the east, which basically became Italy, Germany, and France. They
Mhm.
they meshed a lot with other Germanic tribes, but that's kind of what they became in the end.
So the paladins. So I guess the paladins as like a character have to they're serving like a king or a pope or how does that work? Is there a king in this universe?
Yeah, so in the West Kingdom, I've always alluded to a king. I didn't want to name him for the same reasons I mentioned before about not really alluding to a particular person in history. Um, but you could probably trace it back to say who it was at that time. But the Paladins, they're kind of like the French version of the Knights of the Round Table. So they're very much sort of folklore, but I think they are based loosely on historical characters, but they've been romanticized and all sorts. But I think it's called the Song of Roland. I think it's called or Song of Rollo, one of those two.
Hmm.
It's an old sort of story or fable, which mentions these 12 paladins. Roland is the chief of the paladins. I think all the fables kind of mention him, but then the names switch a bit between some of the different stories. So we use the main 12 that I've found, and then for the promo characters, we grab some other ones that would be mentioned in other stories. But they were basically like the best of the knights that serve the king.
So is there any other like behind the scenes story that we should know about, like how the kingdom got built, talking about the architects, or the explorers of the North Sea, like were they first and what were they exploring? What they explored what turned into the West Kingdom?
So the North Sea is like start out with the shipwrights. So they're basically building these ships. Because when I went to do research, I found there was so many different types of longships. There's kind of like about 8 or 9 categories and some extras that are kind of a bit of a mishmash of other ones. Um, so it was quite interesting to me from a mechanical point of view because I could make these different ships for different purposes. Um, and then after the game was released, people were saying, that's cool that we've got these ships, but why can't we use them to raid? And that's where the idea of raiders came from, and that's kind of sparked this whole thing.
Hmm.
So when I came to explorers, it was just like, well, that's the next step. We have some kind of Norse settlements in New Zealand. So I grew up, or spent some of my childhood in a place called Dannevirke, which is a Norse settlement. So I was kind of aware of the fact that the Danes and the Norse travelled in their massive ships all around the world, even to New Zealand. So I wanted to do that game about how they were like crazy explorers. Um, they were mainly going out to try and find new land to grow crops, though. That was their main kind of motivation because they were from such a harsh land. Um, But as far as like how it ties to the West, they're very much different people. But the Vikings did attack France quite brutally, and to the point where the king had to say they had to basically buy them off. So I'll give you land, I'll give you money and gold if you don't attack us anymore. And that's what became the Norman, or what is now Normandy, sort of like the upper western part of France. Um, so like the champion Rollo, he was a Viking who then settled in France and basically ruled over Normandy. And then for the other stuff, I know that the Vikings also went and attacked further down in Egypt and around that area. So the south will be down there. They'll have a bit to do. I probably won't touch too much on the interaction of that trilogy, I don't think. Maybe with they might attack the east, maybe, I don't know. But it's all, yeah, they're all four very separate people, but historically they did interact quite a bit. So there's going to be a bit of crossover between the trilogies.
Are there any recurring people, that are in all these games or in each kingdom, as it were?
Yeah, there is. Yeah. So I think in the North Sea one, there's probably about 10 or so that are in every single game that carry over. And then as you would have seen in Paladins, the outsiders from the other three areas. So all those Vikings that you see in Paladins are from the other trilogy. So they're just tropes like the barbarian, the berserker, the shield maiden, but they are the same kind of characters that you see in the other trilogies.
And I'm gonna have to break out both sets of decks and compare the
Yeah.
art and everything, and like, aha, that's that guy.
Yeah.
Very cool. So you've announced the expansion to Architects coming out, Artisans of the West Kingdom. How does that fit in with Architects, thematically or gameplay wise?
I was always intrigued by the idea of like with an apprenticeship, like back in the day, you come on as like a laborer, then you become an apprentice, and then you'd be a journeyman, so you go away for a year or something, working out of town, and you'd come back and return as like a master builder. That's kind of how they did their apprenticeships. So in Age of Artisans, basically these journeymen have come home and brought with them these new skills, new tools, and that's basically the story of the game. So you've got these new artisan meeples, which are these like highly trained workers that basically when you place them act like two workers, or you can avoid a virtue drop. And you can also get adornments for your buildings, or you can upgrade your apprentices with new tools. So it adds a bit more engine building and a few more ways to score points. But it's really kind of maybe, I don't know, 10, 20 years after Architects. It's kind of where it's set.
Are you still going to have the original workers in there also?
Yes, yeah. So you have your usual 20 plus this one new big guy, the artisan.
Can you bring the big guy to prison?
Yeah.
Does it cost more to go to prison or no?
No. So once he gets placed, he's just like anyone else. So you place him, he counts as two, then after that he's just like anyone else.
Okay.
Like a power turn that you get now and then.
Are there any other upcoming projects you're working on that you'd like to share about?
So we'll have the third game in the trilogy on Kickstarter in March, hopefully. We haven't announced the name yet, but it should be soon.
Something of the West Kingdom.
You got it. Yeah.
I bet.
And then we're working on the second game in the Circadian universe, which is our sci-fi series. We've got what else? So along with the third game, we'll do Tome Saga, which will be a campaign module for the whole trilogy. We did Rune Saga for the North Sea one, so you can basically play through all three games back to back with this kind of slight campaign module, or you can play each game individually as cooperative modes as well. So that's chewing up a lot of our time currently.
Gotcha.
When you're talking about going to Kickstarter, what would you say is the biggest obstacle when you are doing a Kickstarter? Is it the production? Is it getting the timing right? Is it getting the funding? What do you think has been your biggest obstacle?
I think for me, it's usually shipping. That's the one part you have the least control over. So you're so reliant on other people doing their job. So you can have all your plans laid out and everything works, how it should, but then for some reason the shipping decides to do nothing for 4 weeks, and you're going, come on. So that's probably the hardest part. With the manufacturer, We've got a good relationship. They're very fast and efficient, and they're quick to get back to me. So that's good. I've had some manufacturers in the past that are a bit iffy, but you kind of find the ones you like to work with, and then you know. But the shipping is definitely the hardest part for me.
When you're coming up with stretch goals and stuff like that that get added into the games, are most of those stuff that you've already sort of come up with and are adding, as things get unlocked, or do you have to like scramble as like the project gets bigger and bigger and start, thinking of new things all, off the top of your head?
So I've done both. So with shipwrights, I was scrambling. Like I was like 2x behind my where I should have been. I was trying to make up stuff on the fly, and when you do that, you make a lot of mistakes. So I would never do that again. Um, and the ones after, like Raiders and Explorers, I had all my stretch goals planned. So you basically, well, at that point, I was able to almost estimate where the campaign might end and kind of schedule out these things. And then probably like 2 years after that, I just kind of thought these are just fake. Like everyone knows they're fake. Everyone knows that they're just engineered to create hype. So now I actually don't do stretch goals at all. I just go in with a very open and honest campaign and then chuck in a bunch of free promos so that people are getting something different from it rather than retail. Just because, and we, rather than trying to build hype with here's more free stuff, we just say, hey, everything's upgraded from day one. And then we use like marketing, like live stream videos or kind of insights into the design process to create that kind of hype that keep people engaged instead.
Have you ever had this to change your production person right in the middle of a Kickstarter, or do you pretty much have them under your belt?
So now I have them all lined up way at a time. So yeah.
Because a lot of people, when they see Kickstarters, I think for games, they automatically think like, it's just all automatic. And I can just imagine that it's a really difficult way to come out with a game.
Yeah, for your first 2 or 3 Kickstarters, there's so much you're learning that you could never anticipate. Even now every year there's something that it's like a curveball that hits me every year. I've been doing it for like almost 5 or 6 years. So
And especially with shipping, I would think that once it's out of your hands, then explaining to your backers that, there's nothing I can do. That's
yeah,
a pretty difficult, that's probably
It's probably
would be
frustrating.
very frustrating.
yeah, just gotta be patient.
So besides designing games, what else have you done professionally? And have any of your other jobs influenced any of your games?
I've done a few things. I'm broadcasting, and then I went into done work in like factories, creating bench tops for kitchens. I don't think that helped too much. I've worked at McDonald's as a manager for a few years,
Great.
but my last big job was at a garment printing factory. So we're printing onto t-shirts and things.
So what's one game that you love that you wish you had designed?
There's so many, but I think I enjoy real elegance within games. So I think something like Love Letter would be one I'd probably go to.
Hmm.
There's plenty of big Euros that like Great Western Trail. I'd be like, oh, I wish that was my game. But little games like Love Letter, where it's like here's 16 or 18 cards, wherever it is, and it's such a clever little game. Those are the games I'm usually like, why did I not think of this? It's so
Right.
obvious.
Are there any games that you refuse to play or just won't play anymore because either you're sick of it, or just hate it?
We won't.
Nah, there's been a few that I've played where I'm just like I get frustrated because I see the design decisions and I'm just like, why did they choose to do that? I can't remember what game it was, but it was one of the oh, Manhattan Project spin-off games. It wasn't one of the main ones, but one of the spin-off games. And there were just things in the game. I was like, why the heck is that mechanically in the game? It was so frustrating. So sometimes there's games like that, but there's not many I would say I would never play again, unless it's just absolute trash and everyone knows it. But
Right.
there's not too many games that I probably wouldn't want to play Cosmic Encounter. It's one game I can't get into it. My Sam loves it. This is like one of my favorite games, and I hate it.
What
Mhm.
won't you play? I already know what I won't play.
Probably not Munchkin.
That was what exactly.
Yeah.
I won't play Munchkin. I played it once.
I'm kind of done with Munchkin. I mean, I played it a lot in
Nope.
college when it was like the only thing at the time. That and Settlers of Catan. But at this point,
I'll play
not much
Monopoly
point.
over
Yeah,
Munchkin.
I would.
I mean, Monopoly's not bad. When you're looking at board testers, what kind of testers are you looking for? Are you looking for someone to break the game? Because that's what I love doing. I love breaking the game.
Yeah, we do most of our testing kind of in-house or with certain sort of groups of friends around the area. So we do have one group in particular that are great for that stress testing, kind of breaking the game kind of stuff. So we always go to them kind of in the later stages and just say, can you find any strategies that break the game, and just really try and push them. Or we'll actually try and break them ourselves. So we'll just think, what if we had this insane combo, you know, if it was like the perfect setup?
Yeah.
Do you win by a landslide, or is it still quite close, you know? So we do all that kind of stuff. But then we do blind play testing. We do it for like 3 or 4 people, and just mainly just to check the rulebook is clear enough. That's the main reason for it. But other than that, most of our testing is actually done in-house.
Thank you. And when are we gonna see the next game, the third in the trilogy come out?
So we should be getting the box cover out hopefully in a month or so. So we'll announce it all with the box cover and a bit of character art and that kind of stuff. It's it's testing really
Kickstarter
well.
in March.
Kickstarter March, yeah, hopefully.
We'll keep an eye out for
We
that.
will.
Cool. Thanks so much. I know we've taken up enough of your time, but thank you for talking with us as long as you have.
Are you gonna be
It's
at
been great
SC
chatting.
next year?
Probably. We'll be at Gen Con, definitely.
Oh, you're gonna come over here.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Nice. I'm going to PAX Unplugged this coming up weekend. So I didn't know if are you not gonna have a booth? Are you gonna have a booth at PAX
No,
Unplugged?
it's like very rare that I can travel overseas. It's so expensive from New Zealand. But I'm definitely to Gen Con next year, hopefully Essen, and then see what happens after that.
All right. Well, hopefully one day we'll get to meet you in person, but I appreciate the time to chat online, and yeah, thanks.
Good luck.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.